Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a Battleground tier list, and this has been something you guys have been asking for a lot. Some people might disagree with me in some of my listings, but yeah, everybody has their own right to their own opinion. So I'm going to be doing this into different categories. One is like mobility on the spec, CC, team fights, defending bases, and 1v1 to steal bases. That's what I'm basing this criteria on. So just letting everybody know, Battleground Blitz is pretty much completely different from randoms. Some specs shine way more than others. And as somebody who loves Battlegrounds, I pretty much got hopefully a generally good idea of Battleground Blitz at this point. So starting up with Arms Warrior. Arms Warrior, their mobility is obviously not the best, so it's kind of a little bit low because that's CC wise, they don't really have too terribly much CC. They got Stormbolt, Shockwave, and Fear, obviously. Um, Team fight wise, they're pretty good. I would say they're really good in team fights as long as they have a healer with them. So that's probably the higher out of the other two. Defending bases, they could probably defend pretty well, but not really like enough to get like hyped up because there's a bunch of other specs out there that can do way better 1v1 wise and probably defending lasting longer. And they can and I don't think Arms Warrior can 1v1 a base fast enough, or if even at all, before they get captured. So because of this reason, I'm putting Arms Warrior in B tier. I'm pretty much adding up the total of all the points from all the 5 reasons I've listed, by the way. So that's what's making my criteria for this, by the way. So I'm putting Arms Warrior in B tier pretty much for that reason. I also don't think it's also very strong in the war within at the moment. So that's why I'm putting Arms Warrior in B tier. Tanks are a very hard thing to rate. Up next is Vengeance Demon Hunter. Um, Unfortunately, I don't really get a lot of Battleground blitzes with tanks anymore. Like I really don't. So it's very hard for me to rate tanks at the moment. I would have to, if I had to rate Vengeance Demon Hunter though, based off the small amount of times I've seen tanks, I think Vengeance Demon Hunter is going to be one of the better tanks in like just flag capture maps. I'm just gonna probably base it off flag cap. Nah, it's hard to base it off flag capture maps. I think maybe A tier. It's hard to really rate this one because obviously they're not gonna be 1v1ing defending bases. 1v1 stealing bases. If they get a base capture map, they would make good base defenders for sure. So they're really good at base defending. Obviously, flag carrying, I have to base it off that, and they're one of the faster specs. So I would probably put them on A tier. That's probably where I'm going to put them. Havoc Demon Hunter, I'm going to put on S tier. They have really good mobility. CC wise, they're not too terribly bad. Team fight wise, they're very strong. Defending bases, I don't think they're very, very good at it. I mean, I guess they could be alright, but they're definitely not the best at defending bases. 1v1s, depending on what they face, they can do really well in. I would say they're pretty good at 1v1s, but it depends on, again, what they're facing. So having added all that up, I definitely think they're S tier. So I'm putting them in S tier for that reason. Shadow Priest, I am going to be probably putting this on A tier. Actually, yeah, I'm going to put them on A tier. There's 2 things I don't think they excel at. Mobility wise, pretty much given. They don't have good mobility. CC, they have a really good CC between the amount of utility they have. They got silence, they got fear, they got the roots. They have like so much. Shadow Priest is probably the most utility I feel like of any class in the game. It feels like so to me, anyways. So they have really good CC. Team fights, really good in team fights, obviously because they have a lot of support and all that stuff. Defending bases, I actually think they would make pretty good defenders just because they have a lot of ways to survive, in my opinion. Although they might get sap capped on, so I guess that's kind of well, if you stay away from base, you shouldn't get sap capped. But yeah, 1v1s, I would say they're pretty good at 1v1s, but I don't think they would be fast enough to capture anything, so probably not as good. And that's the reason why I'm putting Shadow Priest on A tier, is pretty much for all those reasons. You could probably argue to put them in B tier, to be honest, but I think Shadow is probably better than Arms Warrior and Battleground Blitz just because of the whole multiple reasons what I said. And I think one of the main reasons that makes Arms specifically pretty good anyways is the whole Mortal Strike thing. Other than that, they don't really bring as much compared to like I feel like Demon Hunter, but that's just me. Up next is Discipline Priest, and this one, as much as it pains me to say, I don't think is gonna be as good as the other healers. It's kind of hard for me to judge healers because I don't really like play them. So I can only go like setting aside my personal feelings for Discipline Priest. I actually hate them. I think I'm just gonna put Discipline Priest probably in C tier. They don't really have as much mobility. I mean, they do have okay-ish CC, but not really too like out of there. They like I said, they don't have mobility. Team fight wise, there's definitely other healers that are better there than them in Battleground Blitz. So, and that's just pretty much my criteria. I'm putting Discipline Priest in C tier. Holy Priest is generally the same thing. I don't think they'll bring us too terribly much. I mean, I guess they're probably I'll put them better than Discipline Priest just because like Guardian Spirit can help out sometimes in team fights. And that's just where I'm gonna put them. There's not really too much of a difference between them and Discipline Priest and Holy Priest, other than Spirit of Redemption and all that. So I'm just gonna put them in B tier. Brewmaster, they're really good at flag carrying maps. I never see a lot of Brewmasters, but the few I have seen have played so incredibly well that it's crazy. Like if you can definitely notice a good Brewmaster, and they could be a huge difference on flag carrier maps sometimes. I feel that way about monks too. So I'm gonna put them on A tier. Like I said, it's really hard to judge tanks because obviously I can't really like give them credit for like 1v1ing bases because it's not gonna happen. CC wise, they're definitely not as good. At least monks aren't anymore. Mobility wise, they're very good. And then the team fights, I can't really say anything about that because, like I said, they're tanks. Tanks are pretty much just all about defending bases or running flags. So I'll put them in A tier pretty much for that reason. Windwalker Monk, they're very good, obviously, in mobility, one of the highest in the game. CC wise, they actually just got nerfed, so their CC is not that good. I don't think they'll be very good at stealing bases. Team fight wise, they're kind of in the same situation as Arms Warrior. They're just there. They don't really bring too terribly much. So they're very good in a team fight, but that's pretty much about what I would put them there. Defending bases, depending on what class you face, they could just CC you pretty hard, and then they could get the ninja back. So I'm not sure if they're really that good of base defenders. I actually don't think they're that great, depending on what they face. So having all that added up, I'll probably put them in B tier. Yeah, I think B tier is probably a good place to put them. They got decent mobility, like I said, not that great CC. Okay in team fights, similar to Arms Warrior. And defending bases, not really that great at it. They're really good at 1v1s and stealing bases. But having said all that, I'm just going to put them on B tier. Mr. Weaver Monk, I am going to I debate on putting this on S tier or A tier. But I'm going to put them on A tier. I think they're still very strong in Battlegrounds, one of the better healers. And I've always hated Revival, but I think Revival is getting changed in the War Within. Like I said, I don't play healers, so it's hard for me to like talk about what they do. But they pretty much fit the criteria pretty well. They're really good in team fights. Very strong against stock classes. Got mobility, and that's just all needed for the criteria and why I'm putting them on A tier. Boomkin, total bias aside, considering this is what I mean, it's always been a strong Battleground spec. It's really strong Battleground Blitz. Mobility, one of the best specs, one of the best classes, I should say, in the game for mobility. CC wise, they got one of the strongest spells in the game, which is Cyclone, and it's even stronger in Battleground Blitz. Team fights, obviously they're one of the best team fights in the game. Defending bases, I mean, I've done it tons of times on my Boomkin. It is possible. Obviously, they're not the strongest defending bases spec in the game, but they're still pretty good. So, unless the criteria is the 1v1 base steals, and I have definitely done a ton of steals where I could cyclone cap a base, and it is possible. So, they pretty much have a good combination of very strong in almost everything. So, I'm putting them in S tier. Up next is Feral Druid. Feral Druid is actually way stronger, in my opinion, in the War Within than they were in Dragonflight, except for like Season 1, maybe Season 2. They're definitely very strong at the moment in the War Within, and their survivability has pretty much gone way up as well in the War Within. So, and just like Boomkin, they're very good at 1v1. Well, not 1v1s. They're very good at stealing bases with Cyclone Cap, and unlike Boomkin, they're very good at 1v1s. Mobility is pretty much the exact same as Boomkin. CC, the exact same as Boomkin. The only difference between Boomkin and Feral is that they're not as good in team fights. So, I think I will put Feral in. It's either an A or S tier. It depends on how your outlook, but I would definitely put Feral in either A or S tier. I'm going to put it in S tier because they're, like I said, in Battleground Blitz, you can Cyclone Cap, and Feral and Rogue, for the most part, is the exact same way. They're probably most likely just going to go off and do their own thing and try and ninja bases, and that's just what they're built for. So, putting aside the whole team fight thing, I think they're pretty much good in pretty much everything else. So, putting them in S tier because of that. Fury War, it's pretty much the exact same thing as Arms. They just don't really bring too terribly much. But that's all there is to it. There's nothing different between Fury and Arms, personally, other than Fury has better self-healing, I think, than Arms, but that's really it. Fury is definitely way more powerful in the War Within at the moment, but setting aside, this is Battleground Blitz, and we're discussing criteria over, like, burst damage and all that stuff, so, it's pretty much the same thing as just Windwalker and Arms. They don't bring a whole lot of CC. Mobility, they can do decently with Heroic Leap. Team fights, not too bad, terribly bad. Defending bases might not be too terribly bad. 1v1s, they can probably do better than Arms. But I think they just deserve B tier because other things kind of just are a little bit better. Guardian Druid is generally best flag carrier in the game for Battlegrounds. Like I said, tanks are really hard to kind of pick, but as far as I know, Guardian Druid should still probably, we can leave it in A tier. The tanks did get nerfed this expansion, so it's really hard to say. So I'm going to put Guardian Druid in A tier at the moment. I think they're better than Vengeance and Brewmaster, though, but we'll see. That's where I'm putting them. They got better mobility. They could probably ninja steal bases with Cyclone, too, so that'll make them even better. Resto Druid are going to be strong. They got the mobility. They can also Cyclone Cap just like the other Druid specs. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Resto Druid is just one of the stronger Battleground Blitz specs at the moment. So if you're wanting to play Resto Druid, and it's pretty good at the moment. Rep Paladin doesn't have the mobility like some of their specs in the game. CC wise, their Hammer of Justice comes up so often, and they have Blinding Light too. So it's not bad CC, but it's not super amazing either. Bubble, they have some of the best support spells in the game. Defending bases, I think they could defend pretty well between all of their immunities they have. 1v1 steals, hard to put hard to rate this one just because I don't know if they would be fast enough to kill the target before it would cap. Having said all that, I think they deserve A tier just because of everything else. They're really good at supports. They could probably defend pretty well. CC wise, they have some of the better CC because the Hammer Justice comes back up so fast. You can just CC the target pretty quickly. Team fights, they've always been really good in team fights. And yeah, I'm just going to put them on A tier pretty much for that reason. Prop Paladin, don't even need to really explain. This is one of the worst tank specs in the game. Almost a good majority of their abilities cannot even be used when carrying orbs or flags, etc. So they're never really that great, and why I'm putting them on D tier. Up next is Holy Pally. I personally don't think they've ever been that great, but some people have been telling me otherwise lately. So I'll put them on B tier. They do have some support spells that help out quite a bit, kind of similar to like Reds, but maybe I'm just not seeing as many Holy Valleys that have been high up there. I don't know, but I don't think Holy Valley is good, especially comparing it to like Resto Druid, Mistweaver, and one other spec out there. So I'll put Holy Valley on B tier pretty much for those reasons, but I haven't really been too impressed by Holy Valleys. But I will put them on B tier because they do have some stuff that help out in team fights quite a bit. So we'll leave it at that. Elemental Shaman. I'm putting this on A tier. They got decent mobility. CC wise, they've done some decent amount of CC. I sometimes eat some pretty huge CC by Ellie's, and I think they can hex steal a flag. So, what's some other things? They're really good in team fights, obviously. Defending bases, I'm not sure they're the best base defenders. They're not really the best base defenders, obviously, comparing it to some other specs. On 1v1 steals, no LE is probably ever going to do that. But Hex can technically do it, but somebody can just trinket that unless you like get them to trinket from Lasso or something, which I don't know if they would ever do that. But yeah, so I'll put them in A tier because of pretty much kind of similar reasons to Shadow Priest, if I'm being honest. Alright, up next is Enhancement Shaman, and I'll put them on C tier. They're not that great, obviously, but I don't think they're just really that great at all. They don't really bring anything. They don't have like a Mortal Strike. They do have Hex and stuff, like they could maybe steal like similar to Ellie, but they just don't really bring too terribly much to the game. I actually think it's better just to have a Arms Warrior or a Fury or a Windwalker on your team, because at least they bring some stuff. But yeah, Enhance, I just can't really think of anything that they bring. I mean, team fight wise, some enhancements can make it work, but that's about it. I don't think that would do much of anything else in the criteria. Up next is Resto Shaman. I think they're going to be in the same category as Discipline Priest, maybe B tier, similar to Holy Pally. I just haven't really been as impressed with Resto Shamans. I'll put them in B tier because they do bring some utility and stuff, but I don't think they really bring too terribly much to anything else compared to Resto Druid, Mistweaver, and some other specs. So I'm just gonna put them in B tier because of that reason. Prot Warrior, I don't think ours is amazing. I mean, I know my friend's gonna be upset because I'm rating it that way. He plays Prot Warrior, but comparing it to the other tanks, I just don't think they bring too terribly much, and that's my reason for putting it in the C tier. Devastation Evoker, I would put in S tier. They got the mobility. CC wise comes back up pretty quickly, even though they don't really have a whole lot. They're really good in team fights, one of the strongest. Defending bases, I've defended pretty well in my Evoker personally. It's one of my favorite things to play in the game at the moment. It is entirely possible to do it, especially if you combine being immune to CC and nobody can stop you. So it's very powerful because of that. 1v1s, they're not the best in the game, but it is entirely doable. So between all that reasons, the only downside to Evoker is their 25-yard range. So if you can get past that, then everything else is pretty dang good. Preservation Evoker, one of the best healers in Battleground at the moment. Rescue helps out quite a bit. Their not self-healing, their healing is pretty dang good. They got the mobility. They're very good in team fights. Not much else to say other than that. Augmentation has gotten nerfed quite a bit in the War Within. I don't think they particularly bring too terribly much to Battleground Blitz. They're kind of similar to Rets and Shadow Priest, where they're basically more so support than anything else. But I just don't think they really bring too terribly much compared to those other specs. I don't play Augmentation a lot personally. I know somebody who does. But before they got nerfed, they were very, very strong. But they got nerfed pretty bad to the point I feel like they're just kind of like supports more than anything else. So it's kind of like you would be better off having a DPS slot. Like that's where I'm kind of at with them at the moment. Beast Mastery Hunter, I think, are the weakest of the 300 specs at the moment. I don't think they bring too terribly much. They got the same amount of mobility. They got the same amount of CC at the moment as the other two specs. Team fight wise, you'd probably be better off with the other two specs at the moment. Defending bases, they're the only difference is that they'll have like a second pet compared to the other two. And 1v1 steals, it's kind of like similar to the other two specs, except for maybe Marksman. BM might be a little bit better in 1v1s than Marksman does. But I'm putting BM because of that. Pretty much, they're not as great as the other two specs. Marksman Hunter has always been notorious for being S tier in Battlegrounds. I'm not really sure where I want to put this one. I've been debating on either putting this in A tier or S tier. I'm just going to put this in probably S tier. As I said before, their mobility is kind of similar to all the other specs. They got disengaged, cheated together when needed. CC wise, they have pretty much the exact same thing. They actually got more tools to deal with people this expansion. They got the traps, they got the stun, they got Chimera Sting, they got just tar traps, explosive traps, bursting shot for different maps, etc. So I'm putting Marksman Hunter S tier because of that reason. Survival Hunter, I'm gonna probably put this. I'm gonna put them on A tier. Same mobility as Marksman, same CC as Marksman. Team fights, they're very good in team fights still. Defending bases, it can do defending bases pretty well, and 1v1 steals, it can be done pretty much as survival. And they do pretty fast damage to steal it, so they could probably steal it in time. And that's the reason why I'm putting them in A tier. I don't think they're as amazing as Marksman, but they're still pretty dang good. So that's why I'm putting them in A tier compared to Beast Mastery, which is unfortunately way down there. Alright, up next is Affliction Lock. Kind of similar to Boomkin, they have always been notorious for being good for Battlegrounds. However, I'm basing this off of, like I said, different criteria. Mobility. Warlocks do not have good mobility to peel out there when needed. CC, they do have some of the stronger CC between having a Silence, obviously, a Moral Coil, Shadow's Fury, Fear, etc. Team fights, obviously, Affliction is pretty much only really good in team fights. Defending bases, they're not really good base defenders. 1v1 steals, they're not very good at 1v1s, in my opinion. However, I'm putting this in A tier for and the reason why I'm doing this. Sorry, I'm having a hard time speaking. Apparently, is because of even though they're bad at defending bases and 1v1s, something they do make up for is the fact that they have Shadow Rift, and Shadow Rift is very powerful on certain maps. So stuff like Warsong or Twin Peaks, where you can save somebody by rifting them down below or something, or Eye of the Storm, Battleground Blitz, for example, you can put it down below a rock, and since rocks are blocking line of sight, they can't like shoot you down there, and you can lock a healer out of the fight for like 5 to 10 seconds, which could make a difference in getting a kill. So even though it doesn't have mobility and it's not really good at defending bases and 1v1s, I feel like Shadow Rift makes up for those. And since they have really good CC and are really good in team fights, it makes up for everything and puts them in A tier. Demo Lock, I don't think is really good in Battleground Blitz. They obviously have the same mobility as the other two lock specs. CC wise, they have a lot of CC just like the other two specs do. Teamfight wise, they would do okay, but I feel like it's the same thing as Beast Mastery. It takes a lot of ramp up time to do damage as Affliction, or not Affliction, sorry, Demo. They would make really good base defenders, I will say that. And 1v1s, I would say they're probably better than Destro and Affliction, but I just don't think they are as good as some other specs like that, so I'm just putting them in C tier for that reason. I don't think they're as good. Destro, I would put them in the same category as Affliction. Same mobility, same amount of CC, really good in team fights, not good base defenders, not good at 1v1s, but they also have Shadow Rift, which makes up for it. and why I'm putting them in A tier. Arcane Mage, I'm gonna put them in B tier because I feel like they're in the same category as Fury and Arms. They obviously have good mobility, and CC wise, I would say they are better than the other three, so I could probably rate them a little bit higher because of that. Team fight wise, they would be good in team fights. Defending bases, I could see them being pretty good defending bases with the amount of tools they have. And 1v1 steals. I think they could steal a base because if you do your CC right, you can polymorph somebody and ninja it. I've seen mages do it. But due to the other reasons, I'm just putting them in a B tier. I don't think they bring as much of anything else, except for like maybe like ice walls and stuff. I know other major specs can do that. So it's kind of hard to rate them besides that. I would say probably like either A or B tier. But I'm going to put Arcane Mage in B tier. Same thing as for Fire. I think Fire got nerfed pretty hard this expansion. So I'm putting them in B tier. They can do the same things as like Arcane. They got the same CC and all that. But team fight wise, I think Arcane Mage could probably do better. And defending bases, I don't think they would be as. It's kind of like equal. And 1v1s, Fire could probably do pretty good 1v1 still. But that's the reason why I'm putting both of those in B tier. Frost Mage is really good in the War Within at the moment. I'm putting him in S tier. Frost Mage slows are very good in Battlegrounds. Ice Walls definitely help out a lot. Yes, I know the other specs get Ice Walls too. I've been told that from last time. Also, you can. I know the other two mage specs can do this too, but you can also. There's these power ups in Battlegrounds Blitz where you can grab a stealth and sneak up on somebody and just like ambush them and knock them away. Some people have done that, including myself. But yeah, what makes Frost Mage good is the slows. They're really good at mobility. They have the same amount of CC as the other ones. Team fight wise, they're pretty good. Defending bases, I would say they're pretty good. 1v1s. Because nobody can ever touch a Frost Mage's melee. So, that's why I'm putting them in S tier at the moment. Frost DK, I was gonna put them on S tier, but they have gotten a lot of nerfs. I haven't gotten a chance to test them in the War Within yet. I have tried them out in the pre-patch, but obviously pre-patch is different. I'm putting them on B tier, just like the Fury Warrior, Windwalker, and Arms. Frost doesn't have a Moral Strike, but they do have a lot of CC between their Remorseless Stun being up quite often. They got a Silence, they got Blinding Sleets. Mobility wise, it's kind of hard to say with this one. They do have a hero talent tree called Riders of the Apocalypse, which is basically the same thing as Paladin, where they can mount in combat and get away when needed. So it's not like they don't have mobility anymore. It's just, it's not as great still as compared to some other specs. They're very good at like pulling targets in for team for team fights, so teammates can kill that target specifically. So 1v1s, I don't think they're the best out there. Defending bases, they can get sap capped on and all that, and CC'd pretty easy, I feel like. So I'll put them in B tier pretty much for that reason. They're very good still, just not super amazing. Unholy, I think, is better than Frost at the moment. Plus, they have a pet to interrupt caps. I know Frost can summon one as well, but I think Unholy's is permanent, if I remember right. Because as far as I could be wrong on that, but I don't think Frost can have a permanent pet back because I don't see any Frosty can use a permanent pet. But yeah, I'm a little bit out of it today, so I might just be misremembering. But yeah, Unholy can rot teams down, which I think rot's going to be a lot stronger in the War Within anyways. So I'm putting Unholy DK on A tier because it's pretty much the exact same thing as Frost. Just that it has a few more things that, in my opinion, anyways, are better than Frost. Blood DK, I would put them in A tier. I think they're very good in Battlegrounds. They can completely annoy a healer out of submission. So that's the reason why I'm putting them in A tier. I'm not sure they're the best flag carriers, but they are definitely one of the most annoying things. I see a lot of Blood DKs just completely sit on healers the entire game and just death grip them out of the combat fight. Sometimes I even see Blood DKs drag them into waters on like Deep Wind Gilness, etc. And people on the forums are calling it the kidnap meta or whatever. So it's why I'm putting them on A tier because of that reason. Outlaw, it's hard to base Rogue on a few things for this one. I know where I'm going to put Assassin and Sub, but I'm not really sure where I'm going to put Outlaw. Outlaw has decent mobility, obviously, and Rogues are notorious for CC, so they're very strong in that. Team fight wise, I would say Outlaw is probably the stronger of the three specs, maybe second after Outlaw. Defending bases, obviously they have tons of vanishes and 1v1 steals, so I guess I can put Outlaw in A tier. I was going to put it in B tier, but they're obviously pretty good at stealing bases, and they're okay at team fights. They have a ton of CC, mobility. Defending bases, you can see them being good. So yeah, I'll put Outlaw in A tier. Sub, 100% getting S tier. They're just always good at 1v1s. They're very strong on beta at the moment. I've been watching a lot of sub rogues on beta doing duels, and it seems like they can kill targets really fast again. So I'm putting sub in S tier because of that again. So they'll be very good at stealing bases, which is going to be what matters. Plus, they can just completely lock a target out of the team fight if it's not a base capture map. So 100% getting S tier. Assassin Rogue is going to be the same thing as Outlaw. They got decent mobility. CC is not as great as the other two specs in my opinion. Team fight wise, they're better as the other two Rogue specs in my opinion, or at least it feels that way to me. Defending bases, same thing as Outlaw. I think they could do defending pretty well. And 1v1s, Rogues are pretty much very good at it. So that's why I'm putting them in A tier. So, anyways, guys, this is my tier list. Let me know if you agree, disagree. And yeah, that's it. See you guys later.